What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, bringing another weekly installment of the Waiver Wire series I run over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel. So this is going to be the Waiver Wire installment for the upcoming week 13, which is the last week of the fantasy football regular season. So if you guys haven't already clinched your playoff spots, hopefully these waiver claims can help you to be able to do so. So pretty wild week 12 overall. Obviously, we talked more in depth about it in the recap show. If you guys didn't watch Monday night live stream, basically every Monday night live stream from now on, we basically discuss what happened on Sunday in conjunction to answering your guys' questions. So if you didn't already know that, make sure you go check out those live streams. But yeah, we were talking about a huge amount of very fantasy pertinent events that actually occurred. So this is a follow-up to that, if you will, based off that type of information that we got from Sunday. How can it be applied to the waiver aspect of the fantasy football game, and what type of pickups, if you will help you in ultimately securing your bid in that either 4-team, 6-team, whatever structure of playoffs that your league currently runs. So very fascinating, very excited to get into it this week. Going to be shorter than usual because there are not too many claims, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it either way. And before we get into the quarterbacks, though, we're going to hit the intro on you. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start off with the quarterback position, and the main waiver wire pickup for me at the quarterback position this week is going to be Kirk Cousins, quarterback from the Minnesota Vikings, currently at 40% ownership according to Yahoo. So his week 12, he had a very good overall week 12 stat line. I mean, he was able to produce 307 passing yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. And he actually was able to rush the ball a little bit, 3 carries for 19 yards, overall contributing to a 26.18 fantasy football output for this week. So his week 13 matchup, he goes up at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who give up the 3rd most points to the quarterback position on the season. So everybody kind of knows the stigma around Kirk Cousins at this point. He is very volatile in his week-to-week outcomes, which kind of makes it a little bit nerve-wracking putting him in your lineup. But good Kirk has basically been the one to show up in these last 4 games. So in his last 4 games, he's able to produce 11 passing touchdowns and 1 interception, 284 pass yards per game, and in that time frame has actually averaged 21.88 fantasy points per game. So as I mentioned, he now matches up against the 3rd worst defense in the league against opposing quarterbacks. I mean, based off an objective processing reasoning, Kirk Cousins should really be in store for a good week now. If he doesn't put on a show, which he should, plain and simple, but if he doesn't, I mean, I just don't want this to end up like Derek Carr. I'm going to still trust the fact that the process means more than the results. So Derek Carr just absolutely staking the bed against the worst defense in the league last week in Atlanta. Has nothing to do with what Kirk Cousins is going to be able to do. So I'm so bothered by that. I know you guys are as well. But anyways, on to the next. All the objective process in this situation points to Kirk Cousins having a very productive day against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So make sure you go pick him up if you need a streaming quarterback for the week. Honorable mentions at this position would be Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback for Miami. If Tua is slated to miss this game, has a very favorable matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals and is only owned in 20% of leagues. Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, goes up against the Tennessee Titans, who are giving up a bottom 5 defense to opposing quarterbacks, and this should be a relatively high-scoring game, given the fact that the Tennessee Titans also possess a very good offense on the other end. So we should see a decent over-under in that one as well. And then finally, it's going to be Phillip Rivers, quarterback from the Indianapolis Colts. He goes on the road against the Houston Texans, and he's only at 33% ownership. Again, you got Deshaun Watson on the other side who's going to put up points. If the Colts want to win this game, they're going to be able to do so against a putrid Houston Texans defense, which ultimately plays in the favor of Phillip Rivers here. So start off the top. Obviously, number 1 option going to be Kirk Cousins, and then the honorable mentions here are Fitzpatrick, Mayfield, and Rivers. Let's cut it dry, keep it simple. Go on to the running backs. As you guys can see on the screen, the top waiver wire option at the running back position, in my opinion, is going to be Cam Akers, running back from the Los Angeles Rams, currently at 29% ownership in Yahoo League. So his week 12 stats, I mean, 9 for 84 and a touchdown. Very, very productive day. He goes for his Week 13 matchup on the road against the Arizona Cardinals, who have been decently stingy against the running back position. I mean, they give up the 20th most points, or the 12th least points, if you will. But, I mean, Cam Akers just looked awesome in yesterday's game. I mean, he clearly had the juice that the rest of the backfield really lacked. I mean, Henderson and Brown combined for 23 total yards on 13 touches, whereas Cam Akers busted off a 61-yard run, had 84 total yards on 9 touches. So definitely a much more productive back comparative to the other two in the backfield. In a very unclear and dicey running back landscape as a whole in fantasy football, I am perfectly fine taking a shot at this ambiguous backfield. I mean, we don't realistically know what the Rams are going to do. So in my opinion, taking a shot at the clearly most talented, highest draft capital option could pay dividends if he is given the more prominent role by a smart head coach in Sean McVay. I mean, the snaps were not ideal. I'll be completely honest here. He was third on the team out of those 3 running backs in snaps, following Henderson and Brown respectively. But again, we're banking here that a smart head coach in Sean McVay is going to see that the most productive, best option in his backfield is Cam Akers, which should result in him getting more touchdowns. Just again, this is a whole lot of hypotheticals here, and I perfectly understand that. If you are scared of picking up Cam Akers, or you need more instant production, he may not be the best option for you. But to me, first of all, the RB landscape on the waiver wires is atrocious right now. Second of all, I mean, if you could stash this guy at the end of your bench, I would be able to do so in basically any league I'm in. And the fact that he's only owned in 29% of leagues is pretty disrespectful, in my opinion, because the amount of upside and talent that this guy oozes out on any single touch that he gets should in itself require a roster spot. So the fact that he's available for you guys, again, in 71% of leagues, you guys should be able to still get him pretty cheap because, again, this is still an ambiguous backfield. I would absolutely take the shot on Cam Akers. Maybe, I mean, FAAB is pretty redundant at this point, but maybe you get him for around $10. I think that should be a decent play for you in the long run. Honorable mentions here. Again, Devontae Booker is going to be mentioned here specifically because the news Josh Jacobs has banged up. If Josh Jacobs is, if you guys are Tuesday or you're ready to make your claims Tuesday night again, and Josh Jacobs is ruled out, I absolutely love Devontae Booker as a pickup because, again, this matchup against the Jets is very favorable on the road against the New York Jets. And if Jacobs were to miss, I mean, Devontae Booker should be in line for a huge touch workload. So I definitely like Booker as well. Again, keep in mind, this completely depends, in my opinion, on the status of Jacobs. So stay tuned with that. Frank Gore is also going to be mentioned here. New York Jets, 25% owned, is going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, Frank Gore, to me, you got the upside of Akers. I think Frank Gore can give you pretty consistent flex value, if you will, for the next couple of weeks, especially with LaMichael Pirine out. Again, we saw just this past week, was able to record 18 carries in that game. I mean, it would realistically be the Jets, a dysfunctional organization who is 0-10, to give the ball to, or sorry, they're 0-11, my bad, to give the ball to a 37-year-old running back 18 times. I mean, they've shown they've given him the ball when he's been on the field. So if that's the case and LaMichael Pirine is still out, which he's going to be, I definitely think that Frank Gore, again, can give you RB3 type value for the short term. So I definitely like him. And at 25% owned, it's pretty cheap considering that you don't find that type of production on the waiver wire very often. And then finally, I'm going to mention Benny Snell, running back from the Pittsburgh Steelers at 35% ownership. Goes against the Washington football team next week. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be Snell, but you guys got to monitor the status. Obviously, with James Conner being on the COVID list, actually tested positive for COVID. See who the lead back is against the Baltimore Ravens on a Wednesday night football. Oh God, it's gonna be weird. But definitely monitor the status of what happens in the backfield. I expect it to be Benny Snell, but if Anthony McFarland comes out and has 15, 16 touches, obviously he's going to replace the name Snell in this list. Anyways, at the wide receiver position, going to mention Alan Lazard, wide receiver from the Green Bay Packers, currently at 21% ownership in Yahoo. Again, his Week 12 stat line, 8 targets, 4 receptions, 23 yards, and a touchdown. And Week 13 plays at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have given up the 11th least points to the wide receiver position. And for Lazard, he returned to action against the Colts, but this week really marked his return from the injury, if you will. I mean, he was kind of eased in against the Colts, kind of looked at full capacity this week, and 8 targets in his first realistic full game back. caught a touchdown, played well, 10.3 half PPR points. I definitely think that with how dynamic, how efficient the Packers offense is, if Lazard is still able to gather that wide receiver 2 role behind Devontae Adams, I think he can present to you solid wide receiver 4 flex play type value down the stretch here. So if you're actually looking at his schedule, it's actually very favorable upcoming, especially in the fantasy football playoff range, if you will. So I'm not in love with Lazard, but out of these options on the waiver wire, obviously Michael Pittman's not going to be available. If he was, instantly you go pick him up, no questions asked. But out of the options under 50%, I definitely think that Lazard has the highest upside of them. Talking about FAAB, probably around $10. Again, it's a little more redundant, but you can probably get him for a cheaper claim than usual again, because not a lot of people are going to have a ton of FAAB at this point. Honorable mentions, I'm going to mention the 2 Jets receivers, Mims and Perriman, at 7% and 12% owned, respectively. I definitely think they should be owned, both of them, on a ton of more rosters. Again, they've really shown over these last few weeks, albeit a few of them were with Joe Flacco, that they're both incredibly involved in this offense. Now, I do think Jamison Crowder's going to start picking it up like as the season goes on, because we saw his usage at the beginning of the season versus now. It's like fucking the differential is ridiculous. But I think they're going to find a sort of find a median between them. Like we should see Crowder getting back to his 8-9 target type, which should limit the upside of these other 2 receivers. But I still like their value regardless. I mean, Perriman obviously being the deep play threat for the Jets, and Denzel Mims being their young rookie second-round pick who they want to develop down the stretch. So I think both of them can present decent depth value for your fantasy football rosters. And then I'm also going to mention Laviska Shenault, wide receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars, only at 18% ownership and goes up against Minnesota Vikings. Again, kind of just a lottery ticket here. We saw that this guy's an explosive, athletic option. And on a team that's tanking, with DJ Chark kind of been dealing with injuries, I do think that Laviska Shenault can come back, enter that role. Hopefully he can get some Ayuk, Samuel type touches in this offense while they're trying to be creative down the stretch and just show any signs of life. I mean, that team is abysmal. They're slated to get the 2nd overall pick, especially if you own Laviska in Dynasty. I know this isn't Dynasty, but be excited for them. I definitely think that down the stretch, they would want to see what Laviska Shenault is going to be able to provide them in the offense, not only for this year, but going forward. So they may be able to be more open to experimenting more often. Again, this is a end-of-the-bench type acquisition at a dry landscape right now, but I definitely like the potential that Laviska Shenault can offer you. I'm going to go into the tight end position here, and I'm going to be talking about Dalton Schultz, tight end from the Dallas Cowboys, currently at 22% ownership in Yahoo League. So his Week 12 stat line of 5 targets, 5 receptions, and 24 receiving yards. His Week 13 matchup is actually at Baltimore, who gives up the 11th most points to the tight end position. And when I was doing the research on this, I was kind of surprised when I came back with this. But Dalton Schultz has actually gotten 5+ targets in his last 4 games, and he hasn't had a single game all season with less than 4 targets. And then you're looking at the matchup as a whole, right? Baltimore has been very good, like super stingy against opposing receivers. Only give up the third least points to the wide receiver position in the entire league. However, as I mentioned, they do give up some leeway to the tight end position, 11th most in the league. If the Cowboys are able to move the ball at all the game, like if they have any type of hope to move the ball, Dalton Schultz needs to be involved in this game again. Ezekiel Elliott's going to be limited by a very good run defense, and the cornerbacks for the Ravens should make life very difficult on the Cowboys receivers. This game should be out of hand early. I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm optimistic. But realistically, I expect the Ravens to go fully pound us in this game. And if that's the case, I mean, we've seen that positive game script for the passing game for Schultz has had him thrive this season. I mean, we saw Atlanta and Cleveland in particular where he really thrived down the stretch and got a ton of volume. We could see a similar type situation in this game where Baltimore gets up early. Dalton Schultz is catching a ton of passes underneath, again, because Baltimore's locking up over the top with those other receivers. So if Dallas wants to move the ball, they're going to have to give the ball to Schultz. So I expect a decently consistent type option that you get with Schultz. I mean, he's top 12 tight end on the year. Doesn't present a ton of upside realistically without Dak, but overall, if you could tell me that this guy's going to get you 8.5 half PPR points, his season average is 7.9. I do think he can push past that given the favorableness of the matchup, if you will. I definitely think he could be a top 15 type tight end option for you on this week. So he's a top tight end waiver wire pickup. And the other one I'm going to mention with the news of the injury to Irv Smith Jr. is going to be Kyle Rudolph, tight end from the Minnesota Vikings, currently at 15% ownership. He goes up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Kyle Rudolph showed this past week, again, 7 interceptions, 68 yards. When Irv Smith is out, that he is utilized in this offense pretty significantly. And I mentioned Kirk Cousins as being a huge, hugely how am I going to wear this? He's a good-looking quarterback option this week. And if he's going to be having success in the passing game, obviously we know what Justin Jefferson's going to be able to do. We'll see if Thielen plays. But Kyle Rudolph has really been that middle-of-the-field type presence for them when Irv Smith has missed time. So I definitely think he could see a good amount of usage in this game with the success of the passing game expected. Anyways, off tight ends, pretty dark position, if you will, in fantasy football, similar to running backs. I'm going to be talking about defense/special team streamers of the week. I'm going to be mentioning the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the New York Jets. I mean, rinse and repeat. Whoever plays the Jets is probably going to have a decent game on the defensive end. Obviously, we saw the Dolphins were able to put up 14 points. But the Dolphins are a good defense. Regardless, the Jets are going to turn the ball over a ton. They're not going to score a ton of points. The least scoring team in the entire league. The Raiders should be able to get you some fantasy success, even though they're not a good real-life type defense, evidenced by their 9% ownership. Going to be mentioning the Los Angeles Chargers going up against the New England Patriots, currently at 36% ownership. Pat's offense is a mess. I mean, they won on Sunday with Cam Newton just being atrocious, and Cam Newton's going to turn the ball over. This offense is going to turn the ball over. And if that's the case, the Chargers are going to be able to capitalize, especially in a game that the Chargers are going to be putting a lot of pressure on the other end. I mean, their offense is just going to put up points. I know the pass defense has been pretty stingy, but the Chargers don't. They're not going to play a low-scoring game. They're going to put the point up. They're going to put the pressure up on the other end. And if that's the case, Cam Newton is going to be forced into making some bad decisions in this game, which he's been prone to all year. So I definitely like the Chargers defense as a streamer. And I'm going to be mentioning the Arizona Cardinals going up against the LA Rams, currently at 21% ownership. Again, similar to what I mentioned with Cam Newton. Jared Goff has been prone to turnovers in these last few weeks. I mean, he had a good game against the Bucs, and then the week after he was abysmal. Like, this is what Jared Goff gives you. He's similar to Kirk Cousins in that he's super volatile, except his ups aren't as good as Kirk Cousins' ups, and his downs are worse than Kirk Cousins' downs. And right now, like, given how many bad defenses are on the waiver wire, if you could pick up an Arizona Cardinals defense that absolutely showed it on this past weekend against the Patriots, I definitely think they could have a repeat performance in a pivotal division matchup against the Rams. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, you probably get them for free. I definitely like the Cardinals because I do think that Goff is pretty much prone to a turnover or two every single game. So that being said, wrapping up the show, again, I said I'll keep it pretty swift and sweet for you guys this week. If you guys enjoyed already, you enjoy the channel, you enjoy the series, make sure you leave a like on this video. It helps grow the YouTube channel a ton. Comment down below what your thoughts of who you're going to be putting your bids on, who you need, what you need this week to ultimately clinch a playoff spot. Have you already clinched? Just talk about fantasy football. I mean, again, we're all in this together. We all want to see each other have success in fantasy football. So get talking in the comment section. Again, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate y'all a ton. This is Danny, Fantasy Stock Exchange. Take it easy, y'all.